yourself. And just going to give a couple more minutes before I start. Today is a topic near and dear to my heart. A lot of files open here. All right, let me see if anybody's tuning in yet on Facebook. I did a live when I was on the East Coast around 12 o'clock, and it seemed like more people were available at that time than now. So who knows? Maybe I need to change my time to a different time earlier in the day. I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And this is a topic, as I mentioned, that is near and dear to my heart because I have been, gosh, working out since a very young age. And one of the things that I always noticed when I would transition between sports is if I had a lag time, I always hated going home after school instead of going and hanging out with my friends. But B, I would notice how if I stopped working out because it wasn't a formal workout or team type of thing, I would put on a little weight, I'd start working out again, and that weight would come off from a young age. I remember that. So that's why one of the reasons exercise has always been important to me, more as a social thing and also as a weight maintenance thing. But in reality, I think once you get past that point of exercise sucks, it doesn't feel good, I'm so sore, it actually becomes a thing that you enjoy doing. So less of a chore and something that you actually like to do on occasion. So just about me, I've been in the fitness industry since 1994, so 30 years. And as I mentioned earlier, I started playing sports. I was not a great athlete. I was average at best. But what kept me going in that aspect is the fact that I always just loved working out with people. That's why when I opened up my gym, it wasn't one-on-one training. It was working out in groups, whether you were in a small group or a large group, because it makes it more fun, right? For me, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when am I going to work out? And what I have found in all the years that I've been working with clients, the ones that are the most successful and the most committed to making it happen, work out first thing in the morning before life gets in the way, right? Especially if you're working and you don't have that casual time that you can just decide in the middle of the day, okay, I'm going to do a workout. Those people that worked out first thing in the morning before work, before the kids got off to school, all of those things that could possibly interrupt your getting your workout done, they were just the most consistent. So keep that in mind when you are trying to schedule your workouts in. Just get it done and over with. So what is the impact on your health when it comes to exercise? And I'm sure everybody has seen that meme. I should have included it, but I regret this workout, said no one ever. After it's done, of course, you might go into a workout thinking, oh, this is going to be so tough. It's such a chore. But when you're done, you're going to feel better. And why is exercise important, especially at this age, for maintaining muscle mass, which we know we are losing at an alarming rate, to improve our bone density, something else that's very important as aging women that becomes an issue once we're through menopause, because we know estrogen does both of those things, right? Actually, estrogen is responsible for all of these things on this list, but specifically maintaining muscle mass and improving your bone density. Also helps with boosting your metabolism and improving your mental health. Again, that whole I regret this workout, said no one ever. When it's done, you just feel better. You get the endorphins, and it really does help you put yourself in a better mood. So what's a practical tip? Think of exercise as your daily investment in your future self. By staying active, you're building resilience, you're reducing health risks for sure, and you're improving your overall well-being. And quite honestly, you're going to be a more pleasant person to be around in general. Your family, your partner, your coworkers will all appreciate that. What are some key considerations for exercise over the age of 40? For one, listen to your body, right? Our bodies are no longer 20 or 30, and most of us are even into our 40s and 50s, and your body is not what it used to be. Don't even expect to think that you're going to do the things that you did when you were 20 or 30. Can you do some of them? Sure. At the intensity? Probably not. Your body's going to talk to you at times and say, not having that today. But even if, say, for me, for example, the middle of August, I got a nasty cold and I wasn't working out. All I was doing was getting my walks in. Then I went back to the East Coast and I was using bands to do my workouts. Nothing wrong with that, but different than what I do on a normal basis. I come back, I have an injury in my toe from dancing at my brother's wedding for 5 hours, and I get sick again. So whatever I had, I relapsed, probably from not sleeping because of my toe. Anyway, all that to say, when I did work out for the first time in a couple weeks on Monday morning, I took it easy. I didn't go to my normal heavier weights. I backed off, and I backed off pretty significantly because I haven't really done a solid workout like this in over a month. And B, I am sure that I lost some strength. C, definitely just not where I used to be, where I could take a couple of weeks off and just pick up where I left off. And it's not worth it, right? Because then you're going to be more sore. You'll be less inclined to want to work out again. I do feel my legs a little bit after that workout yesterday, but it's not so bad that I can't sit on the toilet, and I'm noticing that when I walk and whatnot. So just make sure that you're not starting where you left off. And, that even goes for if you've been on vacation for a week to 10 days or longer, you're jumping on a plane and you jump off the next day and you want to get back to your workouts because you've been sitting, especially if it's been a long plane ride, in a restricted space where you're not moving a lot and the cabin pressure takes effect on your muscles, everything might be a little bit tighter. So you might want to spend a little more time working on mobility before your workout, spend a little extra time on a functional warm-up, and you might actually need to go lighter, and you could need to modify your movement. So that's another thing on this list here. When you're listening to your body, you may not feel up to doing lunges one day, and that's okay. There's always another exercise that you can substitute in. It's knowing what those substitutions are that will accomplish the same thing, but not cause you pain or potentially set you up for injury. That's the important thing to know and learn. And that's why you hire a professional to do so. Pain is a signal that you should not be doing something. There's a huge difference between pain and discomfort. And that's something that you need to learn as you're going along, especially when it comes to lifting, but even when it comes to riding my bike, for instance. I've gotten myself into some situations where I've not given myself enough time to recover, or I've overtrained my legs where I just feel like I'm on the flats and it's hard to pedal. and my quads are just screaming. That feeling is very different than when you're climbing a hill for 2 to 5 minutes and you're feeling some discomfort. So in that case, what you need to do is take that rest and recovery time. Again, you aren't 20 or 30, and your body is going to tell you enough, stop, don't do that anymore, take a break, go do yoga. And that's where I feel like this transition through perimenopause and menopause, you really do need to listen to what your body is telling you. And you can't necessarily just go by your routine that you've always done. And that's where you can set yourself up for injury. So just make sure you're listening to your body. It is different. It requires different things. Focus on form for sure, regardless of what age you are, but especially as we're getting older, you want to make sure that you're protecting your joints and your muscles from overstrain or strain, and again, from injury. Make sure if you're strength training, slow, controlled movements. So one of the things that you can do is count your reps, right? In the NASM certification, they talked about a 4-2-2. What does that mean? So it's your motion where you're pushing the weight, the hard part, where the muscle's contracting, count to a count of 4, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4. Pause at the top for 2 seconds and then bring it back down. You could also even go down as fast as you're going up. I've done worked with a friend of mine back east. We would train together once a week, and his big thing was super slow training. Awesome. It's a different way to change your routine up. So what we used to do was press to the count of 10, right? You'd hold it. And then when you got to the top, you would pulse for 10 repetitions. If you're going real heavy, that can be a little tougher on the joints, but slow and controlled movements, you're definitely never going to lose out when you're doing strength training. So when do we use the speed and intensity? Save that for your metabolic conditioning, right? So if you're doing HIIT training, then you're going to be using lighter weights and you're going to be moving potentially faster depending on what it is that you're doing. Or at the end of your workout, I always throw in some kind of fun finisher, especially if the workout has been very much strength-based, where we might spend anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes working, doing some kind of cardio, or using the sandbag, doing like compound type movements for maybe reps of 10 and just kind of like not resting at all. That's more like a density thing. Or you're setting the timer for 20 seconds and you're resting for 10 seconds and you're doing something like skaters, power cleans, jump squats, things like that. So the metabolic conditioning is where you want to focus on speed and intensity. When it comes to strength training, slow, controlled movements are best. With the intensity side of things, use heavier weight. Rest and recovery should definitely be part of your routine, as I mentioned earlier, and you may need more of that at this stage in the game, especially if your strength workouts tend to be really heavy. So active recovery is an awesome way to rest, but still move a little bit. What's that look like? Yoga, stretching, walking, things of that nature that aren't super intense. And when I say walking in yoga, I'm not talking like power yoga and power walking. I mean like a chill walk would be a form of active recovery. Hatha yoga, where you're just mainly focusing on stretching. Adequate sleep and hydration are super important when it comes to rest and recovery. I've talked about this a couple times about what's going on when you're sleeping. Your body's muscles, tendons, ligaments, everything is actually repairing and recovering during this time. And that's when your body will work on building muscle. That's where your human growth hormone is created. So if we know that it's challenging to put muscle on at this stage in the game, it's going to be more challenging too to make sure that we're utilizing sleep as a means to help us build muscle, right? That's when our body is recovering. That's when we're building muscle. And then for hydration purposes, we know that hydration helps with everything, right? But it's also going to help lubricate your joints, keep your muscles from seizing up. We definitely want to make sure that we are hydrating properly. And again, when it comes to sleep, we're aiming for 7 to 9 hours, right? The best that you can. Just work on improving that. And as far as hydration is concerned, we're talking half of our body weight in ounces. And if you're working out outside, and add an extra 15 ounces per hour of exercise. And that's going to be really important when you're riding bikes for long distances or running for long distance. Anything over that hour, you're going to want to make sure that you are rehydrating while you're exercising. So what are the different types of exercise? Strength training, flexibility and mobility, cardiovascular training, so running, swimming, cycling, walking, all cardiovascular. Balance and core training, and why that is important is for fall prevention, right? One of the things that we do need to become concerned with as we are getting older is falling, not just because we might set ourselves up for injury, but you could be setting yourself up for potentially breaking bones, right? We know that that's an issue once we are through menopause. So you want to make sure that you're working on your balance and incorporating that as part of your training. What are different ways that you can work your balance? Doing things on one leg. I always talk about how single leg and single arm exercises are actually a form of core training because you are unilaterally training the body. So what is happening when you're doing an overhead press, the other side of your body has to compensate for the fact that you're only training this side, right? So that is a way to train your core, but it's also a way to overcome imbalances from your more dominant side to your less dominant side. As a lot of times, if you're pressing 2 weights at a time, especially if you're sitting on machine, that dominant side of your body is going to take over and do more work than the non-dominant side. So things like standing on one foot, I'll have my clients do that on occasion as part of their finisher, especially if we've done a very strength-based that has cardio included. I'll have them stand on one foot and they'll throw a ball up and catch it in one hand. Usually the opposite side, but sometimes you want to do ipsilateral training, which would be same side. So just standing on one foot, 30 seconds, tossing a ball up in the air, and other things like that. I love lunging on sliders. That requires a lot more balance and core. So thinking of different ways to train balance and train core to keep it interesting, right? Obviously, a thing that we want to consider is injury prevention, right? Our body is different. We're a lot tighter than we used to be when we were in our 20s and 30s. What's super important prior to doing any kind of workout, whether it's a run, a strength train, a bike ride, whatever it might be, is taking 5 to 10 minutes and warming up. So a functional warm up, if you're doing strength training, what I mean by that is moving in all different planes of motion, right? And making sure we're doing things to prepare the body to actually warm up prior to our workout, whatever it might be. If I'm on a bike, first 5 miles, I'm not trying to crush it. I'm gradually going to build up my speed, just get myself used to being on the bike. Same thing with a run. I'm not going to get out there. Not that I'm running anymore, but when I did, I wouldn't get out there and go balls to the wall the first several miles. First mile, I would take it easy and then build my pace up. Even more important, as we're getting older, my functional warm up is pretty much 10 minutes. Sometimes it even pushes beyond that, depending on what myself or my clients are feeling. I might add additional things on, depending on what they tell me before the beginning of their workout. So doing things like lunging in all directions, squats, overhead squats, band pull aparts, what else we do? Bridging, lots of breath work, rolling, crawling, all the original strength reset type things are awesome to include as your functional warm up. So if anybody wants to see what that might look like, just pop that down in the comments below and I can record a quick functional warm up that you could use and just follow along on YouTube. So just let me know about that. Foam rolling and stretching for your cool down. I actually use a foam roller before and after my workouts. I need to do it more after my bike rides, because usually what's happening is you jump off the bike, you put it away, you jump in your car and you forget. So I actually have what I call a tiger tail. It's like a rolling pin, and that typically goes with me when I am heading out for a bike ride where I'm loading my bike up to the car. A lot of times I do forget though, when I leave right from my condo, get back, and I'm usually putting my bathing suit on to jump in the hot tub. So that's a kind of cool down, but you really should foam roll even after a bike ride like that. Progress gradually. So way back when in 2012, when I did my functional movement screen certifications, we used to I used to run all my clients through this 7-screen process, and it was great. However, for the average person that wasn't an athlete, I don't think I ever got one person to get all the way through the screens. So certain things that you can do to assess a client. I dropped that down to really 2 or 3 things to watch them before I would give them their programming. Now I'm pretty much, okay, what's your workout history? If it's somebody that's been very sedentary, they're going to go into a stability classification. And truly, when I start with somebody, I'm telling them 3 sets of 10, have rep 9 and 10, be a little challenging, but not so hard that you can't complete the set. So everybody starts at that 3 sets of 10 for at least 3 to 4 weeks. And I learned this after doing a lot of 21 and 42-day challenges with people that were really deconditioned. It's so much better to start with body weight exercises or lightweight and progress yourself gradually, because A, you won't get injured. B, you're not going to be so sore that you don't want to come back the next day or work out again, right? So progress gradually. Think about where you're starting. There's a lot of work that you can do on the ground that's super beneficial to your core strength. Strengthen your foundations first before you get into the crazy stuff. Make sure you're cross training to avoid overuse injuries. So when I'm programming somebody, 9 times out of 10, there's not going to be too much overlap within their programming. Some things might be similar, but I'm generally not going to have them do the same exercise in the same week. Tons of different exercises you can do. I don't even know how large my exercise library is, to be honest, but there's so many different ways to accomplish the same thing. So instead of going for the crazy stuff, start easy. Make sure you're varying up your exercise so that you don't have an overuse injury. The other thing you want to consider too is, I know, when I do my programming, I generally will hit the major body parts, right? We're doing full body training. And as we're getting older, we might need to spend a little bit more time on the less major shoulder muscles or the less major glute muscles. So don't discount doing the isolation exercises for the smaller muscles because they're important too, especially when it comes to frozen shoulder, which is common in women that are in perimenopause and menopause. So just keep those things in mind. Anyway, next. Exercise modifications. So I did want to go over some of these things today because I think sometimes we're so intimidated by doing things like push-ups and lunges because we've never really been shown a way that we can do them and be successful. So push-ups are a great example of an exercise that can be super easy or it can be super hard. I have a shoulder injury right now, so I'm going to show you the easy exercises and I'm going to run through the ways that you can make it more difficult. So, easiest way, hopefully you can see me. Start up high, put your hands on a half wall. Just so happen to have one of these here. Spread your feet so that they're outside your hips. That's going to give you a little bit more stability. And the one thing that people miss a lot is corkscrewing your hands into the ground or whatever it is you're holding on to. And you want those elbows to come back at 45 degrees and then press it back. Basically, a push-up is a moving plank, right? So we want to have our core engaged. We want our feet pushing into the ground. We want our quads nice and tight and our glutes nice and tight. And if you do corkscrew your hands, you're actually going to feel your lats engaged. So you could then drop down to the chair as you start to progress that. Drop down to the floor. When you drop down to the floor, come down to your knees. So easiest, a little less easy, down to the floor, but on your knees, a little bit harder than up here. Then when I'm trying to get people to do more push-ups on their toes, I'll have them start on their toes, lower themselves down, then drop to their knees and push back up. And you can get crazy with different iterations of push-ups, like have one foot up off the ground and do a single leg push-up. You can do Spider-Man push-ups where you're coming down and you're bringing that knee to your elbow. Tons of different ways to make push-ups harder. You could do a clap in between as you're coming up. I actually just had somebody tell me that they did that to make their push-up harder because their toe was hurting them. I understand that problem now. How about squats? As far as modifications go for squats, just a body weight squat, right? So how do you know how wide your feet should be apart? Basically, what I always would tell people is, how do you jump? How do you land when you jump? Do a couple jump squats, and wherever your feet land is where your proper squat stance should be. So from here, just a body weight squat. Put your hands up at your chest. You can reach your arms overhead. But come down. I don't have a fast and furious rule about not going below the line of your knee. I would love to know where that originated from, but if you don't have bad knees and that doesn't bother you, feel free to drop into a deep squat. How do you progress the squat? You add load, right? If you hold it center in front of you, you're going to be accessing more core. You could hold on one side, so single arm squat. You could rack a dumbbell or a kettlebell here. You could put a sandbag on one shoulder and again drop into that squat. I like barefoot because then you can use all 5 toes and you can actually feel your feet and the strength from the ground when you are not wearing shoes, especially in squats and lunges or any kind of lower body exercise. I also have one of these nifty Nobosu mats, which, if I can get it, has all these little nubbies in it. And I like to strength train on this because it really activates all the nerve endings. So you have the most nerve endings in your feet, your hands, your tongue, and down there. Just FYI. The more, I actually don't even exercise with gloves on anymore. I used to do that when I went to the gym, but I don't anymore. All right, how about a plank? Okay, this one might be challenging for me because of my big toe. Don't dance in high heels for too long, wear flip-flops. When it comes to a plank, you can do planks on your hands. If you're engaging and corkscrewing your hands, just like I showed you on the push-up, you're gonna have less pressure on the shoulder and you'll engage your lats, which is actually a good thing. Missy, you love it. It's Gucci. I don't know why she's up here, it's more. Anyway, plank on your forearms. Great cues to use. All right, Miss Smith, I guess I'll go over top of you. So elbows are gonna be underneath your shoulders. Make a fist with your forearms. You're gonna drive your forearms, including your elbows, into the ground. Push back into the balls of your feet. And you wanna kind of drag your elbows down towards your hips. Now, I'm not actually moving them, but I'm engaging them. And when you do that, you'll feel your lats engage. So that's a plank. If you're really firing all your muscles, chances are you're not going to be able to hold that for a long time. The one thing clients will complain about is feeling their shoulders when they do a plank. If you kind of push away from the ground and drive your elbows down towards your hips, it'll take a lot of pressure off the shoulder. You'll feel more lat. The other thing you can do to modify that is to come down onto your knees. So just make sure your butt's not up in the air. Same rules apply. You want to drive your elbows towards your hips. Keep the elbows under your shoulders. I'm a little wide here because I'm a Stacey Dukes. But that's a great way to modify a plank. You can also do lots of crazy things with your planks. Like if you're on your forearms, you can alternate lifting your feet to make it harder. You can tap one hand out to the side, right? Okay, how about lunges? People are terrified of lunges, and rightfully so, because there's a right way and a wrong way. So when you are doing your lunges, you want to make sure, especially on the reverse lunges will work your butt and your quads. Forward lunges are going to work more your quads than your butt. So on the lunges, you want to make sure that you're taking a big enough step back so that if you glance down at your knee, it's not far forward of your ankle or your foot that's forward. And you want to make sure that back knee is dropping, and then you're stepping forward again. So big step back, keep your eyes up, keep your chest up. And again, this is where having your shoes off, you're going to feel a lot stronger. You're going to have better balance, and you're going to get a lot more out of the exercise if you can do it barefoot than having shoes on. Lots of different ways to lunge, but really watch so that at the bottom, oh, somebody trying to come in. At the bottom of that lunge, what it should look like is ankle, knee, hip. Same thing on the other side. Hip, knee, ankle. Echo, stop. Echo's talking to me for some reason. And then just lastly, please don't do sit-ups and crunches. I'm sure you've probably heard of disc degeneration in the back. If you want to keep your discs healthier, stop doing this. Because every time you do this, the front part of your disc is getting crushed by the bone, the vertebra, and the back part is creating a bigger space, right? Same thing when you go into extension, but that's a little less common. Not too many people are doing that. You always want to train your spine in a neutral position, right? So that's where planks, anything with resistance bands. I do like to do this thing called a get up, sit up, which is really rolling. You're not sitting up, but just for the healthier spine, please don't do sit-ups and crunches. All right, so what are some of the key takeaways? It's really never too late to start. I've had women start in their mid-70s. My mom started when she was 80. She should have continued. If she had, she probably wouldn't be where she is today. Again, that's all a matter of you just seeing yourself as a person that works out, right? It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Exercise is crucial for anybody, but especially those of us that are in midlife and female. We need to exercise for our metabolism, for our bone health, for our heart health, all the things, right? For our mental health. Focus on all kinds of exercise, just not one form of exercise. So think about strength training, think about your cardio, think about your flexibility, think about your balance, and make sure you're recovering. So listen to your body and then progress gradually. It really isn't a race. You want to make sure that you're safe. If you ever have questions, it's a great idea. I always say to people, would you would you try to fix your own car, or would you hire a mechanic to do so? Your body is no different than a car. You want to have somebody that knows what they're doing, guide the process, take the question, the guesswork out of things. Hire yourself a coach. Final thought, every time you move, you're investing in your future. So think about it that way. We're always focusing on our 401k to make sure that we're okay and our kids are okay. But, you know, what are ways that you can invest in your health to make things better, right? And that's exercise. Do something you love and you'll be more inclined to do it forever. Make it a social thing and you're again going to be more inclined to stick to it. Keep it up, stay consistent, and prioritize your health. We get one body and we want to keep it as healthy as possible. So hopefully that helped. Any questions? Go ahead and ask. I'm going to check quickly on Facebook. If those of you that are on Zoom have any questions, you can either come off mute and ask, or you can type it in the comments. Not seeing any comments there on Facebook. So I'm going to stop. And yay, I remembered to record it. And that was way more than 15 minutes. Sorry. I should have known better. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. Anyway, you guys can, I think we're all, whoops.